Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 2023 meeting of Safe Silver Spring. Thank you for joining us. As usual, we will hear a presentation from MCPD, and then we'll open it up to questions. This evening, in the absence of Commander McBain, Captain Reed will be leading our discussion, and I will turn it over to him. A couple announcements I'll make in the beginning. Our neighborhood is going to have an ice cream truck and a food truck in Nolte Park on June 16th from 5 to 8. We're inviting first responders, so special invitations going out to the third district staff. We'll drop by Nolte Park, and we'll have the Icy Dream ice cream truck. And you're welcome to join us as we try to increase our collaboration with local law enforcement and the Fire and Rescue Service. On Saturday, June 17th, and I'll send out notices, it's the 14th annual Silver Spring Blues Festival, which I started in 2009, and we invite all of you, and especially our officers, to come through the crowd and listen to some music. It's where the fountain used to be in downtown Silver Spring on Ellsworth. It goes from 10 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock in the evening. We've got some really exciting performances, and we hope that you can join us, and it is free. So with those two announcements out of the way, let me turn it over to Captain Reed to lead us through tonight's program.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's good to see everybody again. A lot of familiar faces. So Commander McBain, like I said, he apologizes he couldn't be here. He had a conflict as well. So we will basically just, again, I'll give you a quick brief, and then we will go through our executive staff, starting with the George sector, moving up 29 to the Henry sector, and then finishing up with the Ida sector. Like Alan says, and I really want to give a shout out to Alan. He does a phenomenal job putting these on, and I think it's great information that we send out, and we continue to work together as in the community to solve our problems. So what I'll do is I'll start with, a lot of people don't understand, I know Greg was talking about a little bit about my role as staying down in the Silver Spring. So my new role is to really concentrate working with Lieutenant Galladora on downtown Silver Spring, the crime initiatives, the foot patrols, working with other initiatives, cameras, just a lot of initiatives in order to make Silver Spring safer. And this is not just downtown Silver Spring, but a lot of our pilot programs like Adopt a Neighborhood and things like that. We start down there because we're concentrating where the crime is. And then we learn from what initiatives are working, what initiatives are not. We all come together as the executive staff. We bounce ideas off each other, and we go with what works with the community. Officers, we're scheduled for about 163. I think with military leave, injuries, and stuff like that, we're down to about 130. So we have to be extremely, we got to watch what we do with our officers so we don't burn them out, but we have to make sure that we're using them effectively. So that's kind of what my role is right now. So I actually want to give a shout out to our Eric Cathcart for his outstanding work in North Hills and our community relationship there. Also want to thank the Helendale community. They delivered pizzas to the officers yesterday. That was awesome. A lot of police officers had to undo their vests because they were eating a lot of pizza. So I'm hoping that the ice cream social on June 16th, you got a lot of ice cream, because when you wear a vest in summer, you tend to get a little hot. So they're probably going to be over there eating a lot of ice cream. As some of you may have seen, we had the Wayne Avenue homicide press conference the other day. Really feeling for those families. I know our detectives are working extra hard to try to bring that to closure. They're following leads. It's still an active investigation. I don't want people to think we've given up, but we have used that as a stepping stone for new initiatives like the foot patrols that Lieutenant Gallador will get more into, and some of the other initiatives that we have worked on. I will say I'm extremely proud of what our officers, not just in Silver Spring, but across the Montgomery County are doing. Today, we have seized 446 firearms, and mainly from traffic stops. So I would lie to you to say if I wasn't a little bit concerned with some of the new legislation coming down that's going to restrict these search and seizures and stuff like that, because what we're doing is we're getting a lot of guns off the road. We're well above where we were last year and the year before that. And if you think about it, there's a 446 firearms that will never reach their destination. They will never do harm to anybody. They will never destroy a family. And so we're really proud of what these officers are actually doing out there every single day. I also want to mention that our Community Day is coming up on Sunday, May 21st at 10 o'clock to, I believe it's 8 o'clock in the evening. That's going to be at the county fairgrounds in Gaithersburg. That was a huge success last year. I believe we had well over 30,000 attendees. We're expecting even more this year. Each district station has a tent. You got specialized units there. We got fire and rescue. We're going to let fire and rescue play this year. We're going to bring them in, let them be a part of the cool kids. So they're going to be there. We're going to have the dogs, the motors are going to be there. We're going to have food vendors. We're going to have rides for the kids. It's going to be a great day. So we're trying to get that message out to everybody. So please, if you're in the Gaithersburg area on the 21st around 10 o'clock, swing by, look for the 3rd District Station, and swing by and say hi. I'm really proud to report that our carjackings, what we're seeing, are slowing. We haven't actually had any in the last week or two. I know Bethesda had one last night that they're investigating right now. But I'm also telling you that I'm watching extremely closely, as all of us are actually, on the DC's new crime initiative. They're really having meetings about how they're dealing with the juveniles and the violence they're seeing. And so that will play into a part on what we're seeing here, because a lot of the carjackings we are seeing are juveniles from the district, some as young as 12 years old, which again is very concerning, armed. But with our overlapping foot patrols and our overtime details and bringing in our great partnership, we just had a meeting with the Maryland State Police on Monday and their executive staff. They're bringing in their Spider team, their DUI team, along with our team. And then also with what Rockville is already supplying, you're going to see more troopers on the road making traffic stops for speed, seatbelt violations, red light violations, just to basically a force multiplier on what we're doing. And not just in downtown Silver Spring, up the 29 corridor, New Hampshire Avenue, Georgia Avenue, some of the hotspot areas where we've seen a lot of accidents. And then what I'll do is I'm going to turn it over to Lieutenant Galladora, and he can talk a little bit also about the adopted neighborhood and how that's been a huge success and how we're going to be expanding that program. So, Tony.
Thank you, Captain. Again, thank you, Mr. Bowser, for hosting this event, and for everybody for taking your time to be here with us today. We really appreciate it. Every time we get a chance to see you guys face to face, even if it's virtually, it helps make sure you guys know what we're doing, and helps us to hear what your concerns are. So we really appreciate the opportunity to be here. The high visibility details, if you've been out in downtown Silver Spring, you've seen them. We have them like kind of Fenton and Ellsworth. We have them down by the Panera, kind of the other side of Ellsworth in Georgia. And then as the day goes on, we kind of move them around based on where our trends are. Some of the nighttime details started over a year ago with Captain Reed to address some of the nightlife issues and violent crime we were having, the overnight hours into the early morning. Those issues have kind of been tampered down to a tremendous extent, actually. We believe due to the efforts of our these additional high visibility patrols. We had some issues during the day. We implemented the same kind of philosophy, putting high visibility patrol officers in these areas where we were having problems. And I think that's led to our numbers going way down in some of these areas of concern, particularly the carjackings. So we're going to continue those. We've been doing them for a few months now, the daytime, evening, late night, and into the morning on the weekends. So it's a ton of resources we're really throwing at it. but the feedback we've gotten from the community has been tremendous. They love seeing the officers out there. We've seen it in the numbers. We think it's having an impact in our numbers. And quite frankly, some of the crime that traditionally has stayed in that downtown Silver Spring, we've seen it kind of disperse. We've seen it in other places of the county where we haven't seen it, or maybe even in other jurisdictions. So at least in some regards, we feel like it's working well for us. So we're going to continue those. And again, every month we meet with our crime analysis section. We look at the data, and we sit down and make data informed decisions on where we're putting those officers, the number of officers, and how we're going to deploy them. So that's kind of how we've been doing the high visibility patrols. Captain Reed actually started the Adopt a Neighborhood program kind of down in our George sector, as we mentioned, which is our lower downtown kind of area, the neighborhood surrounding it. And basically what we did was we asked officers, hey, not only being on the arterials on the major roads, we want you to be on these side streets, get into the neighborhoods, turn your blue lights on, just our side lights. So people know it's a police car. You're being visible, you're driving through, the smaller streets that usually don't get a lot of attention, and just kind of, we call it fly the flag, make sure folks know the police are around, we're there, we're waving, we're saying hi. If you're out there walking your dog, we might say, hey, how's it going? Is everything okay? And again, the officers have enjoyed doing it. And then they send us a weekly report of what they've been doing, where they've been, interactions, any issues that have come up. And it's been really good. Some of them have said, hey, we, just stopped and chatted with the person walking down the street, and they told me about all these abandoned vehicles in the neighborhood and these other things. And I got all these little things I'm working on now that we would have never known about had it not been for these kind of programs. So we're doing that. That's been very successful. I think the residents have appreciated it. And we're going to continue that. And actually, I think we're expanding that a little bit beyond just the neighborhoods in the downtown area. I think we're going to kind of expand it, continuing north into the greater parts of the 3rd district. And you should be seeing that shortly. Next is, I believe at our last meeting, we talked briefly about what we're calling our VCIC, or Violent Crime Information Center. So what this is other agencies might call something like this a real-time crime center. So it's a centralized place at headquarters where they are able to monitor all the 911 calls coming in, and all the video feeds that are available to us. And in Montgomery County, all of our buildings have cameras on them, just like every business has cameras on them. And in the past, we've never really leveraged using existing cameras that are already out there, or our traffic cameras, or and we started deploying some in certain areas, and kind of, as calls are coming in, try to piece things together and solve crimes immediately, instead of just, hey, we had a robbery, let's go look for the cameras in the areas. A few hours later, we'll review them over the next few days, try to find suspects. Very kind of slow process. We're trying to be proactive, monitor them in very close to real time. And Lieutenant Diezenkowski has been a part of this program from the beginning. And we had a tremendous success recently. So we also have our camera trailers that have been, you may have seen out. We have one deployed at Ellsworth and Fenton right now. We had another one on Thayer up until last week, which had to be brought in for maintenance. But again, the officers at this Violent Crime Information Center can pull those cameras and look if they need to in response to a specific call. So just, I believe it was a week or two, we had a robbery in the downtown area, street robbery. There were no weapons, thankfully. The 911 call came in. Our staff at the VCIC were able to pull the cameras in that area. They actually saw the suspects right away. They saw which way they ran. There was cameras in that other area, which was kind of past the skate ring and a little bit behind Veterans Plaza. They were able to pull cameras over there and see the suspects there literally holding the property that was taken in the robbery. Based on that, they were able to guide in our patrol officers. They got there, put handcuffs on them, made arrests, recovered the property, returned it to the victim. And all this happened in a matter of minutes. So this is the kind of success, we've been working towards, building the technology, having the right tools in the right places to kind of make some progress on a lot of these incidents. And it's been successful. And I feel like we've really just scratched the surface. We're still training these folks up. We're We're still installing new technology and hardware. So we're very optimistic moving forward, kind of the capabilities we're building with that. The next piece, I don't know if anybody has, how deep in the weeds folks have gotten with the county executive's budget, or seen any of that. Let me back up just a little bit. We talked at the last meeting about our staffing. Captain Reed mentioned it. According to a county council report, they say our vacancy, meaning our lack of officers, is like 10%, or we're 17 officers short. The county level, we're short, according to their numbers, about 108 officers. And we're losing on average 12 officers per month, at least we did last year. We lost 12 officers a month. We graduated about 19 in March, and we don't have a academy class in right now. The next academy class is supposed to start in July. And it takes about 12 to 18 months to fully train a police officer. From today to when we expect to have new officers on the road, we expect to be about 12 to 18 months. So if you do the math, we're not quite at rock bottom yet, even with all the work that we've been doing and initiatives that we've been doing to recruit and retain. And there's been a ton of work and progress, and we're optimistic we can kind of recover. But according to the council report, we could face a shortage of 239 police officers by 2025. So that's about double where we are now, and it's affecting the service. It's reflecting our response times and some of our capabilities. So in the report, they also talked about that. In 2021, our response times for calls for service was 8.36 minutes. Last year, it went to 9.2 minutes. So about a 40-second delay or increase in our response time. And if you kind of go back on the chart that they have on there, if you go back all the way to 2012, we were at around 7 minutes response time. So we went from about 7 minutes 10 years ago, 11 years ago, to 9.2. So we're not in the right direction. But as the police department is, we want to improve. We know the staffing issue is not going to get solved overnight, and we're working on that. So one of the proposals we pitched was called Drone as First Responder. And this is a concept we saw successfully deployed in California, where they're putting pre-staging drones with an employee, a department employee, on the tops of buildings in areas that have high impact, where we know there's a lot of activity, and we have traffic, we have a lot of issues in the downtown area. And here you can listen to the 911 calls coming in and deploy a drone in addition to the officers on the street. And while that's deploying, you can live stream the video to a supervisor who can start making informed decisions on whether or not we need to respond or respond faster, or that people left and we don't need to go at all. Out in California, they've been able to de-escalate some situations. They had calls for one in particular person. They had a call for a man with a gun at a restaurant. They got over top of it, and they were able to watch him for a few minutes as officers were still kind of responding, and see that it wasn't an actual firearm, and they were able to de-escalate that one. And I can't tell you enough how much that would help us if we were responding to a person with a gun and we're able to determine it wasn't a gun before we got there. So they had cases like that. According to the FAA, and their program's been around for a few years. So they've been around since about 2017, 2018. They've done almost 4,000 flights. The drone has assisted on 505 arrests and saved 986 patrol resources, meaning like they were able to clear the call from the drone and not send officers or send less officers from that. So very promising technology. So we proposed the county executive's budget had a pilot project, meaning this wasn't going 100% full speed, but it was, let's give it a little bit of seed money, see how it develops, see if this is worthwhile, see if it's affecting our response times, see if it's being, given what we're advertising, right? If it's helping us do our mission more safe and more effectively in light of our staffing challenges. So that's in the county executive's budget. It did go before the Public Safety Committee. They endorsed it and moved forward to the full council. And yesterday they did have a hearing on it. And unfortunately, it doesn't appear, it kind of got deprioritized. So it doesn't look like that funding is likely to go forward at this point. And a lot of the discussion about it was that we haven't done a lot of community engagement around the topic, which certainly something like this, a lot of folks would have a lot of questions. They want to know about transparency. They want to know about what we're doing with the data, what protections there are for, privacy and all those things. So great questions. The flip side was it's kind of hard to do that conversation if we don't have money for an actual project. So there's a lot of discussion about that. So I bring it up to this group just because you guys are very engaged in what's going on with the public safety world, and just wanted to get some initial feedback. So at the moment, it looks like the project probably won't get funded, but I don't think the conversation is totally dead. I think we can keep on having this conversation. So I think I saw a question pop up. Alan, did it say something about how much money was this project?
Yeah.
So the county executive's proposal was for $250,000. For me as an individual, that's a lot of money for a county our size. In my opinion, that's not a tremendous amount of money. I could tell you being down 17 officer positions or more than that, that's much more than that amount of money in officer salaries that we're not paying because we don't have the available resources to do that. So
Tony, the county council has broken a lot of hearts this budget season. We had a couple of priority projects that they wouldn't put on the reconciliation list, so we feel your pain.
Yep. Yeah. So and I get it. I know it's a tough season, and I know that's why they get paid their money, because they have to make some tough calls sometimes. But of course our goal at the end of the day is to serve and to handle these calls for service in the most efficient and responsible way and transparent way we can. And we were just really optimistic that we can use this program as a way to help do our jobs a little more efficient, a little more safer. So I don't think the conversation's done long term, but I just wanted to put it out there because I truly do want some feedback. I know it's a little off the wall concept a little bit, which is part of why it's a pilot project, right? We want to see the impact, if it works, how well. My personal opinion is bad guys will see this overhead. They're going to know we have it, word's going to get out really quickly, and they know they're not going to outrun a drone. They're going to go to other places to do their dirty work, is my opinion. But I think we'll see longer term. So did I miss any other questions that popped up?
There were a bunch of questions in the chat. I have not been paying attention to those. I've been listening to you, and we can get to those later.
Okay.
But I remember some of our 3rd district commanders going back to Mitch Cunningham. MCPD has always been interested in more video cameras around downtown Silver Spring, and there's been pushback from people in the community who have privacy issues, so don't have issues with law enforcement generally. Some of it's changed. I mean, we were really happy to see the cameras on the aerial cameras that are downtown Silver Spring. We thought we needed those, at least for right now. And I agree with you that the conversation is not over, but I can imagine the council members wanting to have those conversations about privacy, because some people are not going to be comfortable with that at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the last thing I'll add before we move on. President Obama had, there was a document from his administration that talked about transparency and privacy in deploying unmanned aircraft systems and these exact circumstances. And all of the recommendations in there, which of course that was developed with privacy groups. We've taken all of those. So it's no facial recognition. It's not listening to any conversations. It's any video or data that is obtained is stored with the exact, with the same policy as our body worn camera. So it goes in the same system, and the retention periods are the same as our body worn camera and those types of things. So there was a lot of, and there's also annual reporting and public reporting and things like that. So there were a lot of considerations that went into privacy, but a big piece of that is having the conversation with the people in the community and hearing from folks like yourselves. So that's all I really have. I don't want to monopolize everything, but if there is any feedback, I would love to hear it from anybody. And I will turn it over. I don't know if Captain Reed, if you're back up, or if you want to go to Lieutenant Schmiel.
Yeah, Lieutenant Schmiel, if you want to take it, and then Lieutenant Diezenkowski can finish this up.
Sure. First and foremost, I want to introduce myself to everybody. I was actually on the last meeting, but unfortunately I wasn't able to participate. I was the midnight duty commander that night, and it was a fairly busy night. So my name is Greg Schmiel. I'm one of the new lieutenants in the 3rd District, and I oversee the IDA sector and also our special assignment team and our DCAT team. Just a little bit about me. I'm a 20-year veteran of the police department. I started in patrol down in Bethesda. From there, I moved on to an undercover special assignment team in Rockville. From there, I spent several years in the Special Investigations Division as an undercover narcotics officer. From there, I got promoted to sergeant. I spent 3 years in Silver Spring, the IDA sector, as a sergeant. And then from there, I moved on to the Wheaton District, where I spent approximately 9 years supervising an undercover special assignment team there. For the past 3 months since being promoted to lieutenant, I'm back in Silver Spring, and it feels like home to me. So thank you all for having me. I'd like to start with something positive. Pretty much as soon as I came to Silver Spring, Commander McBain tasked me with some community engagement in the IDA sector. Specifically a 3-on-3 basketball tournament that is actually ongoing now. It's a tournament that runs 4 weeks every Friday night, and we're playing at the Briggs Cheney Rec Center. So we're into our 2nd week. The first night went well. It was lightly attended, mostly due to the weather. And then this past Friday was very well attended, and everything was going great. Some of you may have heard we did have a setback. Unfortunately, we had a few individuals that showed up that night and weren't really interested in community engagement or basketball, more in starting trouble. So that ended up turning into a fairly large brawl in the entryway of the rec center, which then spilled out into the neighborhood. We were able to break up those fights, disperse the crowd. We made a few arrests. And we have met with Parks and Rec, and we met as a command staff. We've decided that we are going to push forward and continue with this tournament for the next 2 weeks. And we spoke with Parks and Rec today, and we've decided that people that come there to have a good time, we're going to let them in. We're going to feed them. We're going to play basketball with them. We're going to continue to engage them positively. And those that come for trouble, if they're not there to play basketball, they're not going to be welcome in the rec center. So we're hopeful that moving forward, being a little bit more stringent with who we let in and how we control everybody in there, that we'll finish up positively for the next 2 weeks, give out some great trophies, and have some good times with the kids that are there to have a good time. On a positive note, even with the fight last Friday, after we broke everything up, we were able to come back into the gym. And there were still about 20 or 30 kids there that were there to have a good time. So we were able to have a nice meal with them and really engage them. So that was really positive and uplifting to kind of see them sticking around to spend time with us. I've been asked also to just discuss briefly the issue that we've been having in Silver Spring with homicides. It's no secret that we've had 5 this year so far, and that seems to be a hot topic that everybody asks about at community meetings. So I'll just very briefly touch on that. I can tell you that with each of these, there's still, even if we've made arrests, active investigations. So I can't comment too much on the actual investigations. But with regard to the homicide that occurred on Bonifant, arrests have been made. So we're very happy about that. With regard to the homicide on Treetop, that is still an active investigation. I've spoken to our homicide detectives, and they're working several very promising leads. Arrests have been made in the homicide that occurred on Old Columbia Pike, and also the one that occurred on Lockwood Drive and on the school bus on the Metro. That's still an active investigation as well, but I know that arrests have been made there. And as Captain Reed mentioned earlier, the Wayne Avenue garage is still ongoing, but we haven't given up on that, and we're continuing to work that diligently. Moving on from the homicides, we're seeing a lot of gun violence. That's no secret, and we're having a lot of shootings. With regard to the specific shootings, fortunately or unfortunately, I guess, several of them have been found to be self-inflicted, including one that occurred recently on Lockwood and the one that occurred on New Hampshire and Briggs Cheney. The shooting that everybody seems to be asking about is the one that occurred recently on Fairdale, where the individual was struck by a bullet through the wall. That is still an active investigation, but I can tell you that there's been a bit of a lack of cooperation from the individuals involved. Just to talk a little bit about the crime trends that we're seeing specifically in Ida, but then all through Silver Spring, theft from autos and auto thefts continue to be a large problem for us. I can tell you that with regard to the theft from autos, a lot of what we're seeing is airbag thefts, specifically from Hondas. For a while, that was very prevalent in the Ida sector, but it's starting to migrate south into the other districts now. Additionally, catalytic converters continue to be targeted. Just a little bit about that. If anybody has concerns about catalytic converters, Montgomery County Police is doing what we call the Etch and Catch program. If you're interested, you can reach out to any of the county police district stations, ask to speak to a community service officer, and they can set you up with an appointment to have your catalytic converter etched. We're hopeful that what that's going to do is, obviously, people will see the etching and realize that they can't sell it, and they'll move on to somebody else. But then also people will get the idea that nobody's going to buy these things anymore from them because they are being etched with unique serial numbers. With regard to the theft from autos and the auto thefts, a lot of what we're seeing is people leaving their doors unlocked, leaving property in their cars, leaving keys in their cars. So we ask you to help us to help you, and let's be partners in this together. Just remember to not leave a spare key in your car, lock your car at night, park in a well-lit area. And along the same lines as the etch and catch, if you drive a Hyundai or a Kia, which seem to be some of the most targeted vehicles for auto theft, you can contact any police district station, and we're giving out steering wheel locks if you drive a Hyundai or Kia that qualifies. We are seeing a reduction, however, in the auto thefts, especially with the Hyundais and Kias. There was a software update that was pushed out by Hyundai and Kia. So if you do drive one of those cars or know somebody that does, if you haven't taken your car in for the software update, I would encourage anybody to do that because that is allowing the people that are stealing these cars to not be able to do it so easily. With regards to the gun violence, our DCAT team, which is a uniform proactive unit, they've been spending quite a bit of time in the Ida sector, and their primary function is violent crime and guns. And I can tell you these guys have been absolutely fantastic. I think they've recovered over 40 guns out of vehicles so far this year, and they just continue to pull guns out of cars every single week. So we are deploying them. They're splitting their time between downtown Silver Spring and the Ida sector, and we hope that they'll continue to be successful. We're also pushing high visibility in the neighborhoods. And with regard to the adopted neighborhood, which has been successful in the George sector, we've now decided to branch out and start pushing that adopted neighborhood into the Ida sector, specifically White Oak, around Lockwood and Stewart, and the Calverton area. So anybody from those neighborhoods, be on the lookout. We should have a lot more officers being pushed into your neighborhoods, trying to be visible, spending time, getting to know people, and deterring crime. Additionally, because of the uptick in crime in the Lockwood area, we are moving a surveillance camera into the White Oak area. It's going to be set up around the 7-Eleven on Lockwood, and we're hopeful that that's not only going to deter crime with people seeing it there and seeing the presence, but it's also going to help us to identify some of the people that are committing the crimes. The only other thing that I'd like to touch on, because nobody else has done so far, and I saw a question earlier about pedestrian safety, I just want to give a shout out to the officers in Silver Spring. certainly numbers are down across the board in all districts, but what continues to impress me is that when you look at the numbers, Silver Spring leads all districts across the board. With regard to DUI arrests, our guys have made 91 so far this year. And when you ask about pedestrian safety, fatal collisions, things of that nature, we're being told that approximately 60% of all of those fatal collisions and pedestrians struck are alcohol related. So I'm really pleased to see that our officers are still out there doing the DUI enforcement. And then also with the traffic stops, Silver Spring continues to lead the way on that. We're at 1,973 traffic tickets issued this year. And another staggering statistic is that we're looking at approximately 1 out of every 208 traffic stops is yielding a gun arrest. So the fact that we're continuing to do traffic stops will hopefully allow us to continue to pull guns out of these cars and keep the neighborhood safe. That's all I have. So unless anybody has anything to add, I will certainly move on to Lieutenant Diezenkowski.
Before I do that, I have a question. We got an email just a moment ago. Somebody was asking questions about 2 days ago. Email comes from Long Branch. Somebody said there was an incident where there were over 30 gunshots, Indian Springs off University Avenue in Franklin. Is that something that's on your radar screen? Is that just a next door rumor, or was there an incident 2 days ago in Indian Springs, University, Franklin, with 300 gunshots?
I'm not familiar with that. So I'll yield to the other lieutenants or the captain if they may have heard something about it, but I don't.
So we kind of run into this every year as we get closer and closer to July 4th. We're going to see more and more fireworks, and 9 times out of 10, when you're hearing 300 gunshots, that's the firecrackers going off repeatedly. They like to throw them in trash cans and stuff like that to get an echo effect. But I can assure you that has not happened. But like I said, as we get closer and closer to the holidays, you're going to hear more and more like that. That is why these meetings are so important, to get that information out, that we can dispel rumors quickly, so communities are not afraid. So, and I gotta say, Emmanuel, I love your background of Noah. That's awesome. I miss him every day. So thank you for putting that up.
Yeah, we appreciate getting accurate and timely information. It was 300 gunshots that this person reported, and it came through next door, and most of the information that comes from next door needs to be taken with a grain of salt. So thank you for that clarification. So proceed with your program, and I'll do what I need to do on this side. Who's next?
Apparently I'm up. Hi, for those, I was on the last call also, again, was new to the station, so didn't get much to say then. I'm Lieutenant Al Diezenkowski. I've been with the department almost 20 years also, like Greg, just behind him. I started in Wheaton Patrol in 4th District, did that for 4.5 years. I went to our police community action team when that was centralized, running countywide. I spent a lot of time in the White Oak area, Briggs Cheney, during my deployments there. Did that for 3 years. I went to plainclothes drug unit for 2 years on a surveillance team up in Germantown. Then I was promoted to sergeant. I was a patrol sergeant in the 6th District in Gaithersburg for about 4.5 years. And for the last 5, up until this past January, I was a supervisor of the Alcohol Initiatives Unit, primarily focused on DUI enforcement and alcohol education and stuff along those lines. For that stuff, I've spent tons of time on that unit in and around Silver Spring. Obviously, we got a lot of nightlife, so I'm very versed in our thoroughfares and that stuff and our drinking and driving issues. To get into, I cover the Henry sector. I'm not sure what these other guys are doing, because Henry's pretty quiet. We're pretty good there. So there, and I cover midnight. So I do deal with both other sectors with the overnight crew that's kind of handling the entire district. So for us, primarily, right now, we've got a few initiatives. The countywide stuff, the trends, kind of carry throughout the theft from autos. We have some of those, the auto parts, the stolen vehicles. I know Lieutenant Schmiel covered a lot of that stuff already. We do have a small, it's not even a trend. We're averaging about one residential burglary a week or week plus for the last several months, but they all appear from my analyst completely unrelated. They're just a target of opportunity. We don't see anything there you need to worry about other than make sure you all secure your homes. And, if you have cameras, it's great. Just make sure you guys are vigilant with those. We did have an uptick in weapons and firearms events in Henry sector, but those are what appear to all be from proactive enforcement from our DCATs and our patrol officers out, making stops and making arrests. So it appears to be more, but it's actually because they're getting them off the street and making those proactive stops, which is great. We have an initiative right now with the Long Branch Library where they had a problem with a lot of the youth was causing issues in the afternoon as soon as I got out of school. So we have an overtime detail set up with them where officers in and around the library from school release up until the early evening hours, and that's seemed to have made a pretty good effect. They haven't had any incidents to deal with since then. That's continuing through this month, and we're going to reevaluate from there with the library's recommendations with what they prefer over there. We mentioned the adopted neighborhood. We have the Hillendale community has been involved with us for several years now with this, where we have officers that are in routine contact with the neighborhoods there. Officer Considine being one of those. He's phenomenal with that. He talks to the neighborhood on a routine basis. Almost every day he's talking to them when he's at work. And they had a couple of problem homes there. They had a couple of homicides from several years ago. So we've been keeping tabs on those, that neighborhood. And then with the weather changing here, we're gonna launch our bike program again. We'll get the officers back up on Long Branch and the trails to make sure we don't have any street robberies as all the any strong arm robberies as all the events kind of kick off here with the weather warming up. Again, Henry sector's, it's great. It's good to have a quiet sector. I mean, anything can happen at any point in time, I guess, but no news is good news in that sense. We do have a couple of nuisance homes that we're working with other departments within Montgomery County, Housing Authority and code enforcement, and they're dealing with a couple of problem nuisance houses for those that are in the neighborhoods over there. If you're familiar, we may already be involved. If not, reach out to me and I'll see what we can do to kind of help you all out with that stuff. If there's anything we can do to assist. Other than that, we can go to questions. Captain Reed.
Yeah, I've been trying to, along with the other executive, been trying to answer questions from time to time. I'll just hit on the Elizabeth questions about Narcan. We continue to expand our Narcan program, working with Health and Human Services. Narcan is readily available, and it is going out quite a bit. I am concerned that, we're sending out Narcan, and that's great, but we also need to send education with it. We don't just need to send out a drug that will help you in an overdose, but we also need to make sure that we're having conversations about why you're overdosing. I kind of get why do we go to the end of the road instead of starting where the root problem is. We need to educate these young people, because what we're seeing are the fentanyl, compressed fentanyl pills and stuff like that. They're made to look like candy. Like I just put in the post, I believe it's 23, 24 high school kids have been seriously affected by fentanyl, not to mention the amount of overdoses we're seeing on the road. Fentanyl is out there. And when these officers are making traffic stops and making arrests by fentanyl, I don't mean by like 2 or 3 pills. Lieutenant Schmiel can attest to this, being a former special assignment team supervisor. When they are making arrests, they're making arrests for like 800 pills to 1,000 pills. I mean, seriously, it could affect our community. And not only are these guys, we're talking about guns and getting them off the road, but we're talking about fentanyl pills. I mean, some days I wish we could just go back to the times when we talked about crack cocaine and stuff like that, because it seems like every time we turn around, more and more drugs are coming out. I've heard now that there's drugs coming from Pennsylvania that are being mixed with horse tranquilizers, fentanyl. I mean, it's like the drug dealers, they're looking for more and more ways to make a profit and make it more addictive. To me, they're simply murderers because they just don't care what they're putting in, and they're killing our community. So when I say these officers are going out and, and like Lieutenant Schmill said, we're so proud of our officers. Every gun they get off the road, 9 times out of 10 is the nexus of drugs. We hardly have that conversation. But the officers are working out there diligently. And every time I see a report, I send an email to the officers, said, absolutely a great job. You probably just saved a life for that arrest. So that is the day-to-day struggle that they're facing.
This is the time where everybody can ask questions. This is the question that's been bugging me for the last couple of months, which is, I know MCPD has got a problem with the legislation that would restrict the nature of the traffic stops. This is where you're finding the guns.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, well, the first thing is, what kind of behavior leads to a traffic stop? I mean, do you have to be driving erratically? Do you have to be speeding? Do you have to be doing something special? And what's the plan if this legislation passed? I know that the community is not even split. I mean, a lot of people would prefer that law enforcement can make stops if there's no headlights, if there's no license plates, if the registration is suspended, that type of thing. We'd like to have a modicum of safety, on the streets. A lot of it affects pedestrian safety. People driving around with, their headlights off in the evening is a problem for pedestrian safety. But it looks like this legislation would restrict the ability of MCPD to stop a car if their headlights are out. Can you talk about that?
And I'm telling you right now, more guns are going to be reaching their locations, and we're going to be talking about there's more shootings and more crime. We've got our foot on the gas right now, we're literally putting our fingers in the dam, trying to make it better. And let me just make this clear too. Our officers are not just running around and saying, you know what, I'm gonna pull that car over for no reason. There has to be a legal reason for a traffic stop. Speeding, running a red light, running a stop sign, looking over, they're on their phone, seatbelt violation, like you said, there's an emergency repair order, no headlights, and then they walk up to the car. And these officers are very good at what they do. They're like Lieutenant Gallador said, it takes time to train these officers because we call them building blocks. When you walk up to a car, you have building blocks that leads to suspicion, furtive movements. It is in December and they're sweating profusely because they're nervous about what they have in the car. Not just nervous about being pulled over by a police officer, but that allows the officers to ask more and more questions about what's going on. And this new legislation basically handcuffs the officers, said, you know what, you can't do that anymore. You can only ask them, specify why they're speeding, no more questions, let them go. And I'm really concerned, and all of MCP, the entire executive staff are adamant against this law. And I really think it's going to have a detrimental effect on our community. It's going to take us back. I mean, we have kicked and screamed and clawed our way out of COVID and getting these officers re-engaged in the community and making traffic stops and making arrests and stuff like that. I really think this is going to take us way back, and we're going to have to start all over again. Now, again, being professional, we talk about this all the time. We talk about what's the next step if this passes? It's like all we need is the support to go out, make our community safer. We know what to do. We're a very professional organization. I would stack us against any law enforcement agency in the country as far as our professional abilities. Yes, we are human. Yes, we make mistakes. Yes, when people are spitting in the faces of these officers, they are a human being, and sometimes they say things or do things they're not supposed to do. And we deal with that. And we counsel them, we hold them accountable. But this organization and these officers, what they do every single day, bar none, some of the most professional I've ever seen. And every day we watch these body cam videos, 45 minutes of getting berated, calling them every name in the book, telling them what they're going to do to their family members when they get out of jail. And they sit there with a smile on their face, de-escalate, do their job, and go home. But yet, if they raise a finger, that 5-second clip is all over national news, and they're the martyr for every department. This is the struggle they go through, and this is the frustration they feel because they feel like we finally got the train on the tracks, and now we're about to get derailed again, and we got to start all over. So again, I kind of went on a tangent there, but I kind of feel what every one of our executives here, even Commander McBain, have been in the trenches. We have come up through the trenches. We have seen what they see. We hear what they hear. We talk to them in roll call, and this is their frustration they feel.
Thank you, Captain Reed. I've got lots of questions. Anybody else have questions? Emmanuel, are you raising your hand or just indicating that you enjoyed that response?
Do you mind if I answer a question?
Hi. I'm right here. Thank you so very much. I call you all my heroes, I don't know how to say it because I come from far. And at the same time, I realize like the beauty of what you guys are doing on the streets. I have 2 kids, which is 17 and 15. I sleep at night safe because of Montgomery County Police Department. I went to Citizens Academy, I attended, and I have the most respect ever and ever. Like, this is amazing. And that is why I'm very close to the department. But at this point, I have a question. The question is, because we see what the dysfunction is going on in our police force. I mean, I apologize, in Montgomery County because of some politicians, they throw out some crazy nonsense and then they create this division between the police force, the beautiful, a great educated police force, and then with the community. So always there is a situation that someone will take advantage of this. And right now we are in the situation where we are because our police force, they are not appreciated and all that stuff. So what would you expect from us citizens to do in order to help our police force? Because our police force, especially the Montgomery County Police Department, doesn't deserve this. This is the most unique department I have ever seen. I crossed like 3 continents. I came here. This is the best of the best who solved the Lululemon case, a lot of other cases, cold case, 50 years old. That means you guys are doing the right thing. So what would you expect from us? Because what I'm thinking right now is to get involved into like kind of politics, because people has to vote and then to see who is supporting the community and our police force, who is not, or who is playing game. So my last question is that, what would you expect for us to do to?
Well, we truly appreciate the support, and I know I speak probably for the entire staff when we go to these community meetings. We always say your voice is extremely powerful. You all don't know how powerful you are. You're a powerful organization led by a powerful leader in Alan. And so just, when you guys come together, one voice can be quiet. A lot of voices can be a storm. And that's exactly what has to happen. I mean, you have to say, we have got to support the police. We've got to give them the tools. Yeah, they gave us that pay raise and, the signing bonus. That's great. And that's exactly what we need to reach out to these recruits. But when they get in here and then they tell them, all right, you have signed up for this job, but you can only do it this way. And you can't do it this way. but you can only do it this way and only at certain times. But now you got to get, you have to do it this way. Well, but the Supreme Court states, no, it doesn't matter. We have to do it this way. That's very frustrating for the officers.
Yes.
And we continue. We'll talk with anybody, and we work very well with some of the politicians, and we take a step back sometimes too. We're like, where did that come from? I thought we were really making progress on what we were doing, and then we have to take a step back. Now, I think when all of you talk to people and you talk to your elected officials, they'll understand. Sometimes I think they get bad information and they react off that information. But I've always said, we're a very professional organization. We got great leadership. Just allow us to keep this community safe. And I promise you, we will not fail you. Just give us the tools. Let us do what we do. It's like, I don't go to Johns Hopkins and tell a brain surgeon how to do surgery. It's like, I hate to put it like that, but it's like, I didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn Express last night and go in and tell them how to do their job. So just allow us to do our job, and I think we can do it. And I think Lieutenant Galdor had something to add to that.
I really appreciate it. I was Thursday night and Friday morning, I was on the candlelight and the memorial service because of everyone, but Noah is my friend. So yeah, that next day, whatever I heard from our politicians, I don't want to mention names, I was extremely disappointed, because you do some legislation and you come, when you talk differently. So I assure you, I'm going to get involved in to make this better. Thank you so much for your service, and I appreciate it. God bless our Montgomery County Police Department.
Tony, you want to say something before we go to Dan?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you very much for your comments. You have no idea how much we appreciate it. And literally just today, I was having a chat with some of my officers and telling them that, that being a lieutenant, I don't get to do as much police work as I used to do. I do a lot more community meetings like this. And I was telling my officers just today that they have no idea how much people appreciate the work that they're doing. A lot of times they have no idea. They don't get to hear what you're saying very often. So then I think you asked a question earlier about, what can you do to help? Obviously you sound like you're engaged and you want to get involved in the political side of that, which is great. But man, even smaller than that, for anybody on this call, when you see these officers out there just waving and saying hi and thank you, I cannot tell you enough how helpful that is for us. These high visibility details that I talked about earlier, every officer that's out there, they're doing one of two things. They're either there on their days off to work those details, or they're working a 15-hour day or longer. They're doing it and they're out there and they're making sacrifices from their family, and of course they're doing it because it's their job. But man, it just means a lot when somebody says, hey, we see you here, we appreciate the work that you're doing, and thank you for being here. So I can't tell you enough how helpful that is for us to keep our officers happy and engaged and showing up every day. It just means the world to hear from folks like yourselves. It really does.
Dan, your question?
Yes. Several years ago, at my request, Jamie Raskin, when he was our Maryland senator, introduced legislation to require gun owners to carry liability insurance like you and I do when we drive a car. The reasoning being that the insurance companies will take steps to make sure that you don't have firearms that are beyond your capacity to use them responsibly. And he withdrew it because of a lot of political issues at the time. And then Catherine Dumas, pardon me if I'm saying her name incorrectly, and we were working to reintroduce that, but then she was appointed a judge. So when COVID got in the way, we put that aside. But I'm hoping to interest your support in such legislation, because I feel that that may take care of a lot of irresponsible gun owners. You know, nobody owns 20 cars because you can't afford the insurance. My biggest support, interesting enough, comes from the wives of gun owners, because they realize if one of those 20 guns that her spouse may have, you know, does something horrible, and you've co-signed a mortgage, you could lose your home. So it turns out there is something called CRW insurance or something like that that exists. So anyway, I'm hoping that you're interested in supporting that. Mr. McCarthy knows all about my pursuit of that. And anyway, I was curious what your reaction was.
That sounds like a Captain Reed question about insurance for firearms.
Well, I know the CCW, the concealed carry permit that the Maryland State Police has enacted. There's a lot of hoops that you have to go through in order to get that, and I do believe the insurance is there. I think it's smart. Obviously, if you have to take action, if you have to defend yourself, you know, it's no different than having car insurance, you know, to be protected. I can tell you, I don't know enough about the legislation to give you, you know, any more than that, but I do know, working with the Maryland State Police, since they are the lead law enforcement agency that deals with the concealed carry permits and stuff like that. I believe that is part of their program, and I think it's a common sense approach to it.
Well, let me ask this question. I think Tony raised this question, and I'm not sure. Well, mentioned this, but I'm not sure I understood it. Tony, did you say that nighttime crime in downtown Silver Spring was trending down? Because that's been a big issue for us. So that would be good to know. I've got a follow-up question, but is nighttime crime in Silver Spring trending down?
So, and actually, Captain Reed is the expert on this, but if you remember, over a year ago, we were having tremendous issues with the nightlife in downtown Silver Spring. We were having, quite frankly, shootings and extreme violence in the downtown area. I believe, and Captain Reed chime in here, but I believe at one point we had like 60 or 70 rounds of gunfire on Georgia Avenue overnight, and as a direct result of some very disturbing incidents, that's where we really started these high visibility details in the overnight hours. And these were, when I say overnight, I don't mean like 10, 11 at night. I mean all the way up until like 4 in.the morning of the next morning. So Captain Reed, feel free to jump in, because he was the lead when we started these programs.
So thank you, Lieutenant Galdor. So like you said, for a year and a half now, man, I can't believe it's been that long since I've been here. But you know, we've been doing a lot of initiatives, and like I told you all that, you know, we'll do a month of this and then a month of that to see what works. But obviously, when I first started, the nightlife initiatives and the crime we were seeing was out of control. So that's where we put the majority of our efforts. We have seen that trend down considerably because of our getting the nightlife business owners on board, our compliance checks, working on legislation with the nightlife initiative and stuff like that, that I'm hoping that the council will vote on very soon, so we can, you know, make sure the lighting is installed, cameras installed, security staff appropriately, or you know, are trained. But then we started trending down to other resources like our foot patrols, and really started focusing on things that we're seeing now. We do have a new crime analyst. I actually met with our crime analyst today. He's a very sharp individual. And so what I asked him to do, I said, you know, in preparation for this meeting, I said, I want you to go back to January of this year prior and do the first 3 months and see where the crime was. And about March, we changed our initiative, started doing the foot patrols. We do 10 hours of foot patrols 7 days a week. That incorporates lunch and evening and dinner time, walking through the Wayne Avenue garage, walking through other garages, going into the businesses, making contact, talking to people. Had nothing but great emails. I know Lieutenant Galladori has received a lot of them too. And so I said, I want you to look at this crime and give me a before and after. I've got a report here Larcenies down 100%. Vandalisms down 100%. Auto thefts down 50%. Vandalism to the buildings down 100%. Let's see, because what we're doing, let me see, there was another one that I saw. The larcenies down 60%. I mean, it is working. And what we're doing is by using these cameras and by using the initiatives and using Maryland State Police and force multipliers and getting the community involved and going in and talking to the businesses, see something, say something, stay anonymous. These are helping. And I can also tell you this, we're getting word from the people that we're arresting. And when these crimes, I can't promise you, nobody's going to promise you that we're going to stop all crime. We're too close to the district, too close to the line. They think it's a grown-up version of cops or robbers. If they can come and do harm to our people and run across the border, they're safe. But I can tell you that when crime is occurring, 9 times out of 10, on-scene arrests are being made. And we have gotten that word out. And if you come to Montgomery County, you will be arrested. Just like we had about 30 juveniles that hit the Nike store, like we all saw that coming. They were all from DC, stole like hundreds of boxes of Nike stores. We caught about 3/4 of them. And when we put them in handcuffs and took them up to the Silver Spring station for processing, they were floored. You're not going to let us go? Well, that's what DC does. So we have made that known. You come into Montgomery County, you will be arrested. And I think our initiatives are working. We're working more with the Metro Transit Police because sometimes they come up the Metro rail to come off in Silver Spring to do their crime and steal a car and go back down. We're working with our parking enforcement people to be on the lookout and changing their hours. The people, especially the Uber Eats drivers and stuff like that, they're leaving their cars running, or their cars are being stolen. All these initiatives are really paying off. Now, I'm not telling you next week we're going to have a breakout in crime, but I can tell you we're out there and these officers are out there doing their job.
No, thank you. That's a great report, and congratulations on doing so well with the constraints on manpower that you have. I know people are working long hours. We got a question from one of my neighbors, adjacent neighborhood, Seven Oaks. Something happened, I believe, yesterday. Those of you from Seven Oaks have any information on this? People are complaining about a guy who was a contractor for a pest company based in Virginia, and he was really aggressive in his encounters with neighbors. I guess he would knock on doors and he'd say what he was offering, and people would say, I'm not really interested in that, and he wouldn't go away. And he was really quite confrontive and aggressive. Some people on the Seven Oaks listserv were sort of curious, is that a situation for which you would call
Absolutely
number or 911? What would you do in that kind of case?
I mean, would it be any different than an aggressive panhandler at a traffic light where they're banging on the window demanding money? People feel unsafe, call 911.
It's a little different because you can drive away if you're in the car. You can't drive away.
If you're stopped at a red light and you have no way to get out. But if they're coming to your home and they're being extremely aggressive, listen, if you feel that you're in danger, you call 911. Now we may be busy and we may be responding to other calls because of our numbers, but we will be coming. And the best thing you can do is be our best witness. Get a physical description of that person. Is he in the vehicle? Get the vehicle description, get a tag number. So that way we can do a follow-up and find out if he's hitting. Because Montgomery County has had gypsies come through and do their crime, and then they move on to other locations. Help us track them down, help us find them and arrest them.
Yeah, we'll pass that information along because it was quite a conversation on the listserv. Anybody else have a question before I ask my next question? Well, if you have a question, raise it or think about it while I'm asking this question. So I asked about the nighttime crime to ask this question. As the weather gets warmer, do you expect it to trend up or to trend down? Do you remember, what is it? Are there patterns from year to year? I seem to remember least my experience seemed to be that as we got to the end of the year, things started trending up. And I'm wondering whether or not warm weather means less crime or more crime.
Well, I think people are going to come out. I mean, it's not like the cold weather where people want to be secluded and stuff like that. But I think the initiatives we're doing, talking to these, the business owners, getting, they have listened to me. They have bought handheld metal detectors. We have taught them how to do secondary searches and pat downs to make sure guns are not entering the clubs. And I said this before, and I'll say it again. Jason Muscuri has been a great partner, the owner of Society. We hadn't had a call for service at Society in 9 or 10 months because of the initiatives and him listening and the partnerships we have. Sika from McCaldy's doing the same thing. Their staff are professionally dressed. We had a long conversation about the days of them getting in a fight with a patron and throwing out into the streets for the officers to handle are over. Now they're working in partnership with the police. They've hired part-time officers to work outside their buildings when they're open. I mean, everything we're doing sets the tone. Now, I cannot tell you that alcohol gets in some people's systems and a bar brawl will start will come out. But I can tell you right now, since we've done all this, it hasn't been the war zone that it has been in the past. And I pray that we continue to track in the right direction and make Silver Spring safe for everybody to enjoy. And if they don't, we'll bring in as many resources that we need to. We'll make as many arrests as we need to send a statement that you're not going to do that in Montgomery County.
So I want to make a comment and ask another question. The comment is, according to my notes, I think Tony talked about the adopt a neighborhood and driving through the residential areas with the cruisers with the blue lights on. And I guess Hillendale is one and North Hills is one. And you're going to expand it. We'd like to see some visibility in sort of the close-in residential areas along Dale Drive, Seven Oaks, East Silver Spring, and my community of Park Hills, Sligo, Brandview, and Indian Springs. I mean, just having a car going by periodically, showing the flag, as he described it before, is really, it's a priority of ours. And so I know you don't have all the resources, but we would like to see that.
It is really paying out in the George sector. We've done all the communities down the George sector. And now I know Lieutenant Diesenkowski and Lieutenant Schmiel has already sent things out to their supervisors. It helps get our officer engaged in the community and just gives us a quick report on the week on the people they talk to, the things they're seeing. And just like the foot patrols and the businesses, it's just another community engagement step where we can actually talk to the patrons.
Yeah, so for us, that really sort of gets to the core of community policing. We're not going to be able to have a regular officer there all the time, but it would be nice to see the cars going by. One of our concerns is that this trend toward automated traffic enforcement is going to take a while for that to be implemented in the county. And we're seeing a lot of speeding through the East Silver Spring neighborhoods. I mean, that's where I live. I live off of Wayne Avenue, and we see cars going at excessive speed through Dale Drive between Wayne Avenue and Piney Branch Road, going down that hill. So having a car there periodically is will probably help deter people for speeding. So I'm not really keen on the automated enforcement. I'd really like to see cars, pulling people over for speeding. Any questions, anybody else before I ask this question? We can go for another few minutes. This question is, well, we won't have this meeting again until October, so we meet quarterly, so it's going to be a while. And between now and then, we're going to legalize cannabis in the state. And I'm wondering, I think there was a law that passed that said the cops couldn't pull anybody over if they smelled cannabis coming out of a car. You can't stop somebody if they smell of cannabis, and I can sort of understand where that legislation was coming from. But have you started talking about what you're going to do when cannabis is legal? Is there some high level attention focused on that issue?
So actually, I'm going to turn this over to Lieutenant Deason-Kowski because he just came from our Alcohol Initiative Unit. We have programs like A-Ride and Ninja that we continue to work with our officers. So I'll let him. We have ways to continue to train our officers.
So to touch on it, yes, we have. I mean, I have very grave concerns with this because Colorado saw a massive spike in impaired collisions in 2012 when they legalized cannabis there. For us, we're currently working on trying to get more ARID, which is advanced roadside impaired driving enforcement. It lets officers get a little bit further onto their field sobriety tests. They understand, they're able to show and see more stuff with the, they have other tests that let them see the effects of certain drugs that can have on their, that individual, cannabis being one of the ones that the two extra tests kind of provide for. So we're going to keep using that. We're trying to get more DRE, drug recognition experts trained up because that's going to play a part in this. A lot of our gun seizures are coming from marijuana searches. And that is kind of what you're alluding to there. That's going to kind of go out the window for the search in some cases. So the officers are going to have to do a little bit more investigating and check for more on the impairment side of things. I can tell you impaired driving for cannabis isn't a simple ask. It's not as simple as you smell marijuana, something like you smell booze on someone driving down the road. It's not quite the same thing. So, and the sobriety tests are not phenomenal when it comes specifically to impaired driving. So this is one of the areas where I have been teaching for the last 6 years. So the tests themselves aren't as great, and it's a little bit more difficult when it comes to a court case. So for us, it's going to make sure the officers have to kind of check all their boxes, go through every step to make sure that we're fully checking these people out to make sure that they're driving high or they're not. If they're impaired, they're impaired. If they aren't, they aren't. And that will restrict some of our searches going forward once this all kind of goes through.
But you could do a search if somebody runs a stoplight and then they get pulled over, and then you ask a series of questions, or now you smell marijuana in the car. What's the next step?
So we're gonna lose the ability to search the car based on the odor itself. And that's where the officers have to do a little bit more digging, talking, and trying to understand really what's going on. They might smell marijuana, but that gives them the ability to ask a few more questions and do a little bit further to see what else they have. It may not just be marijuana. They may have other criminal indicators going on that they have specialized training in and can understand better. You get some admissions and some other things, consent searches, things along those lines. But it is definitely going to make it more difficult for our proactive units and our general patrol officers to get into those cars that we had been able to get into and seize those weapons, in the past.
Thank you very much for that clarification. It's 8:50. Anybody in the community have a question for our guest this evening? I know there's been a lot of stuff going on in the chat. We did use a program that's going to turn this into a text document, and it's going to be full of information, and we will post that and make that available after the meeting. Maybe we could just sign off with this question. Of course, this is a leading question. Last time Commander McBain was on the phone, he was talking about how many of your calls for service had to do with mental health. I wonder if how you're dealing with that. I'm imagining you don't have a lot more support from HHS with mental health teams that could respond to incidents. I'm wondering what's the mental health situation now?
Well, I'm actually glad you brought that up because our CIT officers that are, we have a team of 8 officers are up and running, and they're mainly concentrating in the Wheaton and Silver Spring area. So they are basically supplementing HHS because HHS is in a rebuilding stage right now. They're actively looking for employers. So they're trying to hire people, but we are starting up our CIT program that stands for Crisis Intervention Team. And they are helping our officers considerably. They don't respond to every call for service, but they work with Progress Place and other organizations that deal with health, the mental health, so that they can respond if somebody needs to have an emergency petition or needs assistance that goes beyond the initial call for service, these CIT officers are specifically trained to deal with that, and they can put our patrol officers back in on another call. So we're really excited about this program, and we think it's going to pay huge dividends. Obviously, if we had the staffing, I know the supervisor, I've talked to him several times, he'd love to have 30 officers that they can respond all over the county and supplement our officers. But right now, from what I'm hearing, the program is going very well.
Well, thank you for that answer. Anybody else have a question for our guest?
Yeah.
Amanda?
Actually, I just wanted, we were talking about the mental health because my younger son, who is 15 years old, he has autism. And this has been the best ever. I'm saying a lot of best, but best like care and all that stuff on the autism, and then ADHD, and also the Alzheimer program. So I would love to thank Officer Lori Reyes.
She is awesome. Yeah.
And he was my instructor in Citizens Academy. His name is, we used to call him Scotty. So yeah, I would like to thank to three of them and the entire staff. So
Laurie is a very dedicated officer, and she has basically single-handedly put Montgomery County Police on the map as far as autism outreach, elderly. I mean, oh my goodness, she's just a wealth of information. And she does amazing work, and I second that. Praise to her.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Jean, did you have a question?
No, I just want to thank everybody on the police force for all that you do to make our county safe.
Thank you.
I'm sure
And we want to echo that. Thank you all for joining us this evening. I think it was a very productive conversation. Hopefully we'll see you in Nolte Park on June 16th and at the Silver Spring Blues Festival on June 17th. Then your community outreach officers can reach out to us whenever we can be helpful. Welcome to our new lieutenants.
Right.
We hope to see you around.
Okay.
I heard Alan said he's buying the first round of ice cream. I don't know if anybody else heard that, but I'll just throw it out there.
Dave Silver Spring will be buying ice cream for the police officers. You guys take care, and thank you all for joining us this evening.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Be safe.
Thank you.